You open your eyes and the weight is already there. Not physical weight, psychological weight. The day hasn't begun, but your mind is already calculating, optimizing, preparing for another marathon of productivity. Your phone buzzes with notifications that feel like tiny electric shocks to your nervous system. Each ping is a reminder that you're behind, that someone needs something, that the world expects you to be constantly available. You tell yourself this is normal. This is what success looks like. This is what freedom feels like in the modern world. But deep inside, something is screaming. Something is breaking. Something is dying slowly while you maintain the perfect facade of having it all together. What if I told you that this exhaustion you feel isn't a personal failing? What if the anxiety that grips you every morning isn't because you're weak? What if the burnout that's consuming you from the inside isn't because you can't handle pressure? Byung-Chul Han, one of the most important philosophers of our time, has identified something terrifying about our society. We're not living in freedom. We're living in the most sophisticated form of oppression ever created. And the most disturbing part, we're doing it to ourselves. Today, we're going to expose the invisible prison that's been built around you. We're going to understand why you feel exhausted despite having more opportunities than any generation in history. We're going to reveal how the promise of unlimited freedom became the source of unlimited suffering. This isn't about motivation. This isn't about working harder or being more positive. This is about understanding that you're not broken. The system is. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. The invisible chains of self-optimization. We live in what Byung-Chul Han calls the achievement society. A world where the old forms of external control have been replaced by something far more insidious. Internal control. There are no more obvious dictators, no visible oppressors, no clear enemies to fight against. Instead, you've become your own supervisor, your own judge, your own executioner. Think about your daily routine. How many times do you check your productivity apps? How often do you measure your steps, your calories, your screen time, your meditation minutes? How frequently do you optimize your morning routine, your workout, your sleep schedule? You've turned yourself into a project that needs constant improvement. This is what Han calls self-exploitation. You believe you're free because no one is forcing you to work harder, eat better, exercise more, learn faster, earn more, be more. But this freedom is an illusion. You've internalized the demands of the system so completely that you no longer need external pressure. The prison guard is now in your head. The achievement society promises that if you just optimize enough, hustle enough, improve enough, you'll reach some magical state of fulfillment. But notice what happens. The goalposts keep moving. Every achievement becomes the baseline for the next achievement. Every success becomes insufficient. Every moment of rest becomes time wasted. You're not living. You're performing. You're not being. You're becoming. You're not present. You're always preparing for some future version of yourself that will finally be good enough, productive enough, successful enough. But that version never arrives because the system requires you to always be in pursuit, never in possession. Han observes that this creates what he calls the tiredness of the ego, an exhaustion that comes not from physical labor, but from the constant pressure to reinvent, optimize, and perform yourself. Your energy isn't being drained by external demands, but by the internal demand to be constantly more than you are. This is why you can sleep 8 hours and still wake up tired. This is why you can have a successful career and still feel empty. This is why you can have freedom and still feel trapped. The achievement society has taught you to be at war with yourself, and in war, there are no victors, only casualties. The toxic positivity epidemic. One of the most devastating aspects of our current society is what Han identifies as toxic positivity, the relentless demand to be happy, grateful, and optimistic at all times. This isn't just annoying, it's psychologically destructive. In previous eras, suffering had a clear source. There were obvious injustices to fight against, clear enemies to resist, external forces to blame. But in our society, if you're suffering, it must be your fault. If you're not happy, you're not grateful enough. If you're not successful, you're not working hard enough. If you're burned out, you're not managing your time properly. The message is everywhere. Choose happiness. Good vibes only. Manifest your dreams. You create your own reality. These phrases sound empowering, but they carry a hidden cruelty. They make you responsible for psychological states that are often beyond individual control, and they pathologize normal human emotions like sadness, anger, and frustration. Han points out that this creates what he calls the violence of positivity, a form of oppression that's more sophisticated than traditional violence because it feels like liberation. You're not being forced to be positive, you're choosing to be positive. You're not being denied the right to complain, you're rising above the need to complain. But this positivity mandate has a dark shadow. When you're not allowed to acknowledge genuine problems, when you're expected to find the silver lining in exploitation, when you're told to be grateful for conditions that are making you sick, you lose the ability to recognize when something is genuinely wrong. The result is a society of people who are suffering but can't name their suffering, who are being exploited but call it opportunity, who are burning out but blame themselves for not being resilient enough. You start to believe that your depression is a lack of gratitude, your anxiety is a lack of faith, your exhaustion is a lack of efficiency. This is psychological warfare disguised as self-help. It keeps you focused on fixing yourself instead of questioning the system that's breaking you. It makes you the problem and the solution, ensuring that you never look up from your self-improvement long enough to notice that the game itself is rigged. The most insidious part is that toxic positivity makes you complicit in your own oppression. You become grateful for the very conditions that are destroying you because you've been convinced that recognizing their destructiveness makes you negative, ungrateful, or weak. The transformation of rest into performance. Something profound has happened to rest in our society. What was once a natural human need has been transformed into another area of performance and optimization. Han observes that we no longer rest, we recover. We no longer relax, we recharge. We no longer simply exist, we prepare for the next phase of productivity. Look at how we talk about sleep, sleep hygiene, sleep optimization, sleep tracking, sleep performance. We've turned the most basic human necessity into another metric to measure and improve. Your rest is no longer about restoration. It's about preparation for tomorrow's performance. Even leisure has become work. Reading must be educational. Exercise must be goal-oriented. Meditation must be measurable. Hobbies must be monetizable. Social media has turned your personal life into content creation. Your vacation becomes a portfolio of experiences to display and optimize. This is what Han calls the colonization of the unconscious. The achievement society has invaded even those spaces that were traditionally free from productive demands. There's no escape because there's nowhere to escape to. Every aspect of life has been integrated into the logic of improvement, efficiency, and performance. The result is that you never actually rest. Your nervous system never truly relaxes, because even your relaxation is being monitored, measured, and optimized. You're tracking your meditation minutes, rating your yoga sessions, optimizing your downtime for maximum recovery efficiency. But rest, in its truest form, is anti-productive. It's purposeless. It's unmeasurable. It's the space where you exist without justification, without improvement, without goals. True rest is revolutionary because it refuses the logic of the achievement society. Han argues that we've forgotten how to be bored, how to be still, how to exist without purpose. Boredom has become intolerable because it feels like wasted time. Stillness has become anxiety-provoking because it's not productive. Existence without purpose feels like failure because we've been taught that everything must have a point. This constant stimulation and optimization is literally rewiring your brain. You're losing the capacity for what Han calls contemplative thinking, the kind of deep, purposeless reflection that leads to wisdom, creativity, and genuine insight. Instead, you're trapped in hyperactive thinking, constantly processing, analyzing, optimizing, but never truly understanding. The democracy of surveillance. One of Han's most disturbing insights is about how surveillance has evolved in our society. We're not being watched by Big Brother. We're watching ourselves. We've democratized surveillance to the point where everyone is both a surveiller and surveilled, both watcher and watched. Your smartphone isn't just a tool. It's a surveillance device that you carry voluntarily. It tracks your location, your purchases, your conversations, your search history, your social connections, your emotional states through your typing patterns and voice analysis. But the truly disturbing part isn't that this information is being collected. It's that you're actively participating in its collection. You check your step count, your heart rate, your productivity metrics, your social media engagement. You rate your experiences, review your purchases, document your activities. You've become both the product and the consumer, the data and the data analyst, the watched and the watcher. This creates what Han calls the digital panopticon, a system of total surveillance that feels like freedom because you're choosing to participate. You're not being forced to share your personal information. You're eager to share it because it gives you social validation, personal insights, and optimized experiences. But this voluntary surveillance has a psychological cost. When every aspect of your life is tracked, measured, and optimized, you start to live for the metrics rather than for the experience. You choose activities based on how they'll look in your data rather than how they'll feel in your life. You're no longer living your life, you're curating it. You're not having experiences, you're collecting data points. You're not being authentic, you're being optimal. The self has become a brand to be managed, a portfolio to be optimized, a performance to be measured. This constant self-monitoring creates what Han calls the transparency society, a world where privacy is seen as suspicious, authenticity is performed, and vulnerability is monetized. You're expected to share everything, optimize everything, and make everything productive. The result is a profound loneliness disguised as connection. You're more connected than ever before, but less intimate. You have more data about yourself than ever before, but less self-knowledge. You have more freedom than ever before, but less autonomy. The collapse of meaning. At the heart of Han's analysis is a devastating observation. The achievement society has systematically destroyed meaning while promising to provide it. You're told that if you just achieve enough, optimize enough, succeed enough, your life will become meaningful. But achievement without context is just activity, and activity without purpose is just noise. Traditional sources of meaning, religion, community, tradition, ideology, have been replaced by individual achievement. But individual achievement is an unstable foundation for meaning, because it's always temporary, always insufficient, always in need of renewal. You achieve something, feel briefly satisfied, then immediately need to achieve something more. This creates what Han calls the crisis of narrative. You have no larger story to place your life within, no greater purpose to serve, no transcendent values to guide you. Instead, you have metrics, goals, and optimization targets. You know how to measure progress, but you don't know toward what end. The result is a peculiar form of suffering, not the suffering of oppression or deprivation, but the suffering of meaninglessness disguised as opportunity. You have more choices than any generation in history, but no framework for making those choices. You have more freedom than ever before, but no direction for that freedom. This is why depression and anxiety have become epidemics in the most prosperous societies in history. It's not material deprivation that's causing suffering. It's existential deprivation. People are drowning in possibilities while starving for purpose. Han argues that meaning can't be achieved. It can only be received or discovered. But the achievement society has taught you to approach meaning like everything else, as a problem to be solved, a goal to be reached, a performance to be optimized. This approach guarantees failure because meaning emerges from connection, service, and transcendence, none of which can be forced. The most tragic part is that the harder you try to create meaning through achievement, the more meaningless your achievements become. You're caught in a feedback loop where the pursuit of meaning destroys the conditions that make meaning possible. The illusion of choice. The final and perhaps most devastating aspect of the achievement society is what Han calls the illusion of choice. You believe you're free because you have unlimited options, but all those options lead to the same destination: more performance, more optimization, more self-exploitation. You can choose your career, your lifestyle, your identity, your values, but within a system that requires all choices to be productive, optimizable, and measurable. You have freedom of choice, but not freedom from choice. Every decision becomes another opportunity for optimization, another area of responsibility, another source of potential failure. This creates what Han calls choice fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from having to constantly decide, optimize, and manage your life as if it were a business. The burden of unlimited choice becomes its own form of oppression, because it makes you responsible for outcomes that are often beyond your control. The cruel irony is that this multiplication of choices often leads to greater conformity, not greater freedom. When everyone is optimizing themselves according to the same metrics, productivity, efficiency, happiness, success, the result is a society of people who look different but think the same way. True freedom, according to Han, would be the freedom not to choose, not to optimize, not to improve. It would be the freedom to exist without justification, to rest without recovery, to be without becoming. But this kind of freedom requires rejecting the fundamental premises of the achievement society. The path forward isn't more choice, it's better boundaries. It's not more optimization, it's more acceptance. It's not more productivity, it's more presence. It's not more performance, it's more humanity. Your exhaustion isn't a personal failing, it's a rational response to an irrational system. Your burnout isn't weakness, it's your psyche's way of protecting you from a way of life that's fundamentally unsustainable. Your desire to rest isn't laziness, it's wisdom. The first step isn't to fix yourself, it's to recognize that you're not broken. The system is broken, and your suffering is proof of your humanity, not evidence of your inadequacy. You are not lazy, you are not weak, you are not failing. You are a human being trying to survive in a society that has forgotten what humans need to thrive. And recognizing this isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning of your liberation.